はい。まず昨年のこの大会で全日本マイクロマス大会のハーフサイズ競技部門で優勝してまして、去年作ったロボットからさらにブラッシュアップして作ったロボットで今年も連覇でやっていこうと思います。
Even people in the top 2 or 3, you can see them trying to set their mice up and they can barely find the buttons to press because it's absolutely nerve-wracking. It doesn't matter what it was. It could be horse racing, it could be motor racing, it could be mouse racing. If you have a shred of competitiveness in you, want to win.
Just like a real mouse, a micro mouse has to be fully autonomous. No internet connection, no GPS or remote control, and no nudging it to help it get unstuck. It has to fit all its computing, motors, sensors, and power supply in a frame no longer or wider than 25 centimeters. There isn't a limit on the height of the mouse, but the rules don't allow climbing, flight, or any forms of combustion. So rocket propulsion, for example, is out of the equation. The maze itself is a square about 3 meters on each side, subdivided by walls into corridors only 18 centimeters across. And in 2009, the half-size micromouse category was introduced, with mice smaller than 12.5 centimeters per side and paths just 9 centimeters across. The final layout of the maze is only revealed at the start of each competition, after which competitors are not allowed to change the code in their mice.
小峰さんがおっしゃっていた宇宙人枠とはこのことか。
Please, thanks, subtitles.
争いは彼のね。
The big three competitions, All Japan, Taiwan, and USA's APEC, usually limit the time mice get in the maze to 7 or 10 minutes, and mice are only allowed 5 runs from the start to the goal.
So if you spend a lot of time searching, that's counts.
Makes sense. So the strategy for most micromice is to spend their first run carefully learning the maze and looking for the best path to the goal, while not wasting too much time. Then they use their remaining tries to sprint down that path for the fastest runtime possible. Solving a maze may sound simple enough, though it's important to remember that with only a few infrared sensors for eyes, the view from inside the maze is a lot less clear than what we see from above. Still, you can solve a maze with your eyes closed. If you just put one hand along one wall, you will eventually reach the end of most common mazes. And that's exactly what some initial micromouse competitors realized too. And after a simple wall-following mouse took home gold in the first finals, the goal of the maze was moved away from the edges and freestanding walls were added, which would leave a simple wall-following mouse searching forever. Your next instinct might be to run through the maze taking note of every fork in the road. Whenever you reach a dead end or a loop, you can go back to the last intersection and try a different path. If your last left turn got you nowhere, you'd come back to that intersection and go right instead. You can think of this strategy as the one a headstrong mouse might use, running as deep into the maze as it can and turning back only when it can't go any further. This search strategy, known as depth-first search, will eventually get the mouse to the goal. The problem is, it might not be the shortest route, because the mouse only turns back when it needs to, so it may have missed a shortcut that it never tried. The sibling to this search algorithm, breadth-first search, would find the shortest path. With this strategy, the mouse runs down one branch of an intersection until it reaches the next one. Then it goes back to check the path it skipped before moving on to the next layer of intersections. So the mouse checks every option it reaches, but all that backtracking means that it's rerunning paths dozens of times. At this point, even searching the whole maze often takes less time. So why not just do that? A meticulous mouse could search all 256 cells of the maze, testing every turn and corner to ensure it has definitely found the shortest path. But searching so thoroughly isn't necessary either. Instead, the most popular micromouse strategy is different from all of these techniques. It's a search algorithm known as flood fill. This mouse's plan is to make optimistic journeys through the maze. So optimistic, in fact, that on their first journey, their map of the maze doesn't have any walls at all. They simply draw the shortest path to the goal and go. When their optimistic plan inevitably hits a wall that wasn't on their map, they simply mark it down and update their new shortest path to the goal. Running, updating, running, updating, always beelining for the goal. Under the hood of the algorithm, what the micromouse is marking on their map is the distance from every square in the maze to the goal. To travel optimistically, the mouse follows the trail of decreasing numbers down to 0. Whenever they hit a wall, they update the numbers on their map to reflect the shortest distance to the goal.
One with the sound.
This strategy of following the numerical path gives the flood fill algorithm its name. The process resembles flooding the maze with water and updating values based on the flow. Once the mouse
How
reaches
reliable.
the goal, smooth out the get a solution.
Attack is the
A.
best defense.
However, it may look back and imagine shorter
Embracing
harder
change.
paths to complete.
Endless
The mouse might not be
reverberation.
satisfied that it's found the shortest path to this goal.
Ha!
While this
Swift and
algorithm is
resolute.
guaranteed to find the best path on the first,
Strike from the shadows.
takes advantage of the fact that micromice need to return to the start to begin their next run. So the mouse treats each turn as a new journey, which the return search the maze as well.
I got your back.
Between these two attempts, both optimized to find the shortest path from
How
start to finish,
reliable.
it's extremely likely that the mouse will discover. And the mouse will have done it
I
efficiently,
will protect.
often leaving irrelevant areas of the maze entirely untouched. Floodfill offers both an intelligent
Embracing change.
way for micromice to find the shortest path through the maze. Once there was a clear strategy to find the shortest path,
An
once the
oversight.
microcontrollers and sensors required to complete it common, some people believe that the mouse had run its course. It's a paper published in IEEE
One
put
with the
at
sound.
the end of the 1980s, micromouse contest had outlived itself. The problem was solved, not provided any challenges. In the 2017 All Japan Micromouse competition, both the bronze and silver placing mice found the shortest path to the goal. But once they did, they were able to zip along it as quick as 7.4 seconds.
How reliable.
But Masakazu Utsunomiya's winning mouse, Red
Embracing
Comet,
change.
did something entirely different. This is the
Transmitting
shortest
frequency,
path to the
swift
goal,
and
the one that
resolute.
everyone took.
One with the sound.
This is the path that Red Comet took. It's a full 5.5 meters longer. That's because micromice aren't actually searching for the shortest path, they're searching for the fastest path. Red Comet's search algorithm figured out that this path had fewer turns to slow it down. So even though the path was longer,
No
it
hesitation.
turned out
I
being
got your
faster.
back.
So it took that risk.
How reliable.
It won by 131 milliseconds. Differing routes in competition are now more common than not, and even just getting to the goal remains difficult, whether due to a mysterious algorithm or a quirk of the physical maze. Micromice don't always behave as you'd expect.
なんですが、実はこのマウス、なぜか走行中に止まっているフリーズするっていうバグを抱いていまして。いや、これ間違うので、それ起きたら僕はもう倒れてました。
Micromouse is far from solved, because it's not just a software problem or a hardware problem, it's both. It's a robotics problem. Red Comet didn't win because it had a better search algorithm, or because it had faster motors. Its cleverness came from how the brains and body of the mouse interacted together.
It turns out solving the maze is not the problem. It never was the problem. But it's actually about navigation. It's about going fast.
Every year, as the robots get smaller and faster, lighter, there is still plenty of innovation left. And there's a small group of devotees in Japan busy building quarter-sized micromouse, which puts it on.
Nearly 50 years on, Micromouse is bigger than ever.
なんてことでしょうか。早い。これはまず残ってるのか。そうです。
competitions have appeared solved at first glance before. The high jump was an Olympic sport since 1896, with competitors refining their jumps using variations like the scissor, the western roll, and the straddle over the decades, with diminishing returns. But once foam padding became standard in competition, Dick Fosbury rewrote the sport in 1968 by becoming the first Olympian to jump over the pole backwards. Now, almost every high jumper does what's known as the Fosbury flop. If Micro Mouse had indeed stopped in the 1980s, the competition would have missed its own Fosbury flops. Two innovations that completely changed how Micro Mice ran. After all, a lot can change in a sport where competitors can solder on any upgrade they can imagine. The first Fosbury flop was one of the earliest innovations in Micro Mouse, and had nothing to do with technology. It was simply a way of thinking outside the box, or rather, cutting through the box. Every mouse used to turn corners like this. Everything changed with the mouse Mighty 3.
Mighty Mouse 3 implemented diagonals for the first time. That turned out to be a much better idea than I really thought. And because it's cool, you know, main designers often put
One of the
diagonals.
sounds.
So
Strike from the shadows.
we end up
Got
with a
your
maze
back.
where it's actually
In order to pull off diagonals,
How
the chassis of the
reliable.
mouse had to be reduced to less than 11 centimeters wide, or just 5 centimeters for half-size Micro Mouse. The sensors and software of the mouse had to change too. When you're running between parallel walls, all you have to do is maintain an equal
Embracing
distance
change.
between your left and right infrared readings. But a diagonal requires a fairly new algorithm, one that essentially guides the mouse as if it had blinders on it.
normally if you're going along with something or something like that, you know, most of the time you can see the wall all the time. And so that helps you to guide yourself and you know when you're getting home. But in the diagonal situation, you just see these walls coming at you.
And if you veer even a tiny bit off course, snagging a corner is a lot less forgiving than sliding against a wall. Diagonals are still one of the biggest sources of crashes in competition today. But in exchange, a jagged path of turns transforms into one narrow straightaway. These days, nearly every competitive Micro Mouse is designed to take this risk. Cutting diagonals opened up room for even more ideas. Around the same time, mice were applying similar strategies to turning. Instead of stopping and pivoting through 2 right turns, a mouse could sweep around in a single U-turn motion. And once the possibility of diagonals were added, the total number of possible turns opened up exponentially. The maze was no longer just a grid of square hallways. With so many more options to weigh, figuring out the best path became more complex than ever. But the payoff was dramatic. What was once a series of stops and starts could now be a single fluid snaking motion. How Micro Mice imagined and moved through the maze had changed completely. Available technology was getting upgrades over the years as well. Tall and unwieldy arms that were used to find walls were replaced by a smaller array of infrared sensors on board the mouse. Precise stepper motors were traded in for continuous DC motors and encoders.
The DC motors give you more power for less size and weight, and so we were interested in doing that. So then you have to have a servo, you have to actually have feedback on the motor to make it pretty big.
Gyroscopes added an extra sense of orientation. It's like a compass.
One of the sounds.
Yeah, definitely with it.
The end has come.
The turning is done based on the gyro.
How reliable. Attack is the
But
best
even with all the
defense.
mechanical upgrades, the biggest physical issue for Micro Mice remains unaddressed for
Embracing
decades. One thing you'll see almost every
Very
competitor
shallow.
holding is a roll of tape.
Ha!
Once
Swift
you know to
and
look for it,
resolute.
you'll see it everywhere. This tape isn't for repairs or reattaching fallen
Strike
parts.
from the shadows.
It gathers specks of dust off the wheels
I
in
got your
between
back.
rounds. At the speed and precision these robots are operating, that tiny change in friction is enough to ruin a run. If you want to turn while driving fast, you need centripetal force to accelerate you to turn. And the faster you're moving, the more force you need to keep you on track.
Such a
The only
nuisance.
centripetal force for car turning on flat ground is friction, which is determined by two things: the road pushing up the weight of the car, normal force, multiplied by the static coefficient of friction, which is the friction at the interface between the tire and road surface.
I got
This
your
is
back.
why racetracks have banked turns. The steep angles help cars turn with less
reliable.
friction, because part of the normal force itself now points in to
This
contribute
is my ground.
required. If the bank turn is steep enough, cars can actually make the turn
Leave it to
without
me.
any friction at all. The inward component of the normal force alone is
Swift
enough
and
to provide the centripetal
resolute.
force
One
required to stay on track. Micromice are no different, and they don't have bank turns to help. As they got faster and faster, by the early 2000s, their limiting factor was no longer speed, but control of that speed. They had to set their center of gravity low and slow down during turns to avoid slipping into a wall or flipping over. But unlike race cars, there wasn't anything in the rules to stop Micromouse competitors from solving this problem by engineering an entirely new mechanism. Micromouse's second Fosbury flop was almost considered a gimmick when the mouse Mokomo 08 first used it in competition. You might be staring at the video to try to see it, but you won't. Instead, it's something you'll hear. That isn't the mouse revving its engines, it's spinning up a propeller.
Spinner.
Flying over the walls is against the rules. There's nothing in the rules against a mouse vacuuming itself to the ground to prevent slipping.
Dave Otten was
Nice.
my son for the fan. He's a ducted fan, and I think he was really looking at kind of reaction force, blowing the thing down. He had a skirt around, but it was not terribly effective. The idea is to let as little air in as possible. And like your vacuum cleaner, when you block your vacuum cleaner, right, the motor unloads and speeds up, and so the current drops. But if you let too much air in, the current's very high. And these are just quadcopter motors, and they draw a lot of current.
At the scale of Micromouse, a vacuum fan, often just built from handheld drone parts, is enough to generate a downward force 5 times the mouse's weight. Wow, okay. That's impressive. So how much does the car actually weigh?
About 130 grams. Listen.
Oh yeah.
Here, slow down, close up.
With that much friction, Micromice today can turn corners with a centripetal acceleration approaching 6 Gs. That's the same as F1 cars. Once nearly everyone equipped fans, the added control allowed builders to push the speed limit on Micromice.
When it's allowed to, it will out-accelerate a Tesla Roadster, but not for very far.
And they can zip along at up to 7 meters per second, faster than most people can run. Every one of the features now standard on the modern Micromouse was once an experiment, and the next Fosbury flop might not be far off. The first 4-wheeled Micromouse to win the All-Japan competition did so in 1988, but it would take another 22 years of the winning mouse growing and losing appendages before 4-wheeled mice became the norm. With Micromice still experimenting in 6- and 8-wheeled designs, omnidirectional movement, and even computer vision, who knows what the next paradigm shift will be.
Your time on the maze actually begins only when you leave the start square. So he's not penalized for any of this time.
But if you want to get started with Micromouse, you don't need to worry about wheel count or vacuum fans or even diagonals.
It is, to my mind, the perfect combination of all the major disciplines that you need for robotics, engineering, programming, embedded systems, all wrapped up in one accessible bundle that you do in your living room and in your laboratory tomorrow. You come along because you're curious, and then you think, I can do that, that doesn't look so hard, and then you do. If it sucks you in, it turns into quite a journey.
10秒。いや、時間は問題じゃないんだ。さあ、運んだ。
At its core, Micromouse is just about a mouse trying to solve a maze. Though nearly 50 years later, it's a simple problem that's a good reminder there is no such thing as a simple problem.
How reliable. Embracing change. Verity shines. One is the sound.
If you want to build your own Micromouse, you'll likely need to design parts using a 3D CAD program, with Onshape the sponsor of this video. Onshape is a modern CAD plus PDM system designed for businesses and completely free for makers and hobbyists to use. Any serious hardware product needs a precise design in order to be successfully made in the real world. From a Micromouse model like this one to a professional V2 engine model like this one. Unlike traditional CAD programs which are installed on premises, Onshape is built entirely in the cloud, which allows engineering and design teams to collaborate like never before. Onshape allows you to work together in real time on the same design with multiple users, just like Google Docs. This completely eliminates the need for emailing large files back and forth and trying to keep track of who has the most recent version, whether it's V2 or V22. With Onshape, agile methodologies that are common in software development are now being adopted in hardware development to allow companies to build better products faster. Onshape is not only great for businesses, but also for open source projects or just working on designs with your friends. Again, it's totally free for hobbyists, so you can try it out for yourself as much as you like at onshape.pro/Veritasium. You can take Onshape with you wherever you go. You don't need a powerful desktop or a specific operating system to run it. Whether you're on a Mac or PC, or even just on your phone, you can easily use Onshape. So to get started, sign up for free at onshape.pro/Veritasium. I want to thank Onshape for sponsoring this video, and I want to thank you for watching.
Monkey.
On October 22nd, 2018, Bitch Flower Power achieved a new world record by completing Super Mario Bros. 3 in 10 minutes and 44.416 seconds.
Yeah.
When watching the run, some things might seem odd or even suspicious. Why does he wait? Why does he slow down? How does he jump on a wall? What makes the speedrun so good? Let's answer all of those questions and more. This is the Super
One with the
Mario
sound.
well-figured speedrun explained. First of all, category. This is 80% no wrong one. The 80% part is that the goal is to finish the game by reaching this speed, no matter how much of the game actually completed. Use of warp whistles is allowed, so the goal would be to get 2 warp whistles, and then to use them both
Attack is the best defense.
as quickly as possible. For speedruns that
Embracing change.
there's far less than 100%.
Endless
If you want to check out
reverberation.
these runs, you can find a link in the video description. The no long warp part is a bit more complex to explain. In short, there's a glitch that, under certain circumstances, can force the game
hour
to
is
value
upon us.
variables as if it was instructions in the code. With an extremely precise setup, there's a way to set values for those variables and translate them to instructions and tell the game to skip to the end screen immediately. This is a wrong one. That specific instance is called the credits run. It's a fascinating, albeit very different speedrun. It will be covered in a separate video.
Remnants of the past.
That's a lot.
As you may have noticed, it slowed down here, then Mario was moving much faster. There's a crucial mechanic in Mario Bros. 3 called the P-Speed. The meter at the bottom of the screen fills up when Mario is running. When it's full, Mario will run faster, jump higher. If he has the Super Leaf or the Tanuki suit, he'll be able to fly. The meter only fills up when P is held and Mario is running on the ground at top speed. Mitch wants to fill up the P meter as early as possible to make use of that faster movement speed. He barely doesn't have enough space to fill it all the way up while jumping over the Goomba. So as soon as he reaches P speed, jumps and does a quick left tap to dodge the Piranha Plant. Doing it this way is still faster than jumping earlier and filling up the meter later. Bouncing on these enemies is simply done by jumping right before touching them, the last 3 frames before getting hit.
I play too hard.
Here, the Hammer Brother moves before Mario can start moving. This happens every time when going back to the world map, while at least one Hammer Brother is there. Each Hammer Brother chooses one direction to go in. Then, it checks if the spot under it is free. Hammer Brothers can't stay on a stage, a mushroom house, or another Hammer Brother. In that case, they keep moving, only going back the way they came from if they're at that end. Interestingly, Hammer Brothers cannot choose to move
One with the
straight
sound. From the
If
shadows. I
they
got
move
your
to a
back.
matching card, both the Hammer Brother and the matching card king
How
try to find
reliable.
each one. These can lead to situations where a Hammer Brother is trapped, or where 2 Hammer Brothers waltz together for a very long time.
You got
Worse,
me
where a
there.
Hammer Brother and matching king is stuck together forever, soft market World 1 total of 4 times, once after each of these 4 stages. So the Hammer Brother has 4 times different possibilities
Administering
to
first
move,
aid.
4 and 3 tiles of total. Every time it moves by more than a single tile, the additional movement costs a bit over half a second. Because of the mechanics behind the choice of a direction, the possibilities are not improbable. The optimal pattern only has a 3.5% chance of happening.
Got your
The
back.
likeliness scenario is that it is 7 squares in total. The expected average is a little
I will
over 6
protect.
squares. In this run, the Hammer Brother moves by 1 and 1,
How
total of
reliable.
6 squares, which is a little bit better than average. There's only a 20% chance of getting a better pattern.
Embracing change.
There are many more random elements in this run, and the chance of all of them being perfect
This
is
is
astronomical.
my ground.
Not getting the optimal Hammer Brother
One with the
pattern is
sound.
not a
No hesitation. I got your back.
In this level, speed can only be acquired in it's theoretically possible to fill up the
reliable.
from the beginning. That requires a speed and precise inputs that are too hard to execute in time. As the strategy
Now
to beat
it's
the
my
level,
turn.
as demonstrated by
One with the
Clueless
sound.
in this game, is even crazier. Instead, Mitch goes for a strategy that is much easier at the cost of a fraction of a second.
Somebody tripped over the cable and plugged the server. Damn right. Yo, Angel Wind, what's up?
Definitely.
Mitch will need a super lead to fly up to the second warp whistle, so he needs a mushroom first. The fastest to get is here, because bumping on this block from the side allows him to grab the mushroom faster and keep more momentum than he would have kept from a regular block. Many of you may already know this, but after holding down on white blocks for 4 seconds, Martin falls behind the background, which allows him to get behind the black wall at the end of the stage. Hidden behind it is the secret exit that rewards him with the first warp whistle. By timing it correctly, Mitch was able to start moving and build up as much speed as possible right before the 4-second threshold. Holding this Koopa shell also let him run through this Koopa, letting him reach the speed without losing his mushroom or having to jump.
I thought you were saving bits for a loot crate. Yeah, don't be spending your bits. You gotta save them.
Moving on the overworld map is not as simple as it seems. The first movement after loading the map can be buffered by holding the desired direction. For every subsequent movement, attempting to move too early results in Mario being unable to move for the next 24 frames, which at this level of play is a major mistake. Additionally, when moving by multiple spaces in any given direction, holding the D-pad makes Mario move every 16 frames, but only after having to wait for those 24 frames first. So, to move around optimally, Mitch actually needs to time his D-pad presses perfectly. This run will need to move on the overworld map 38 times, so it adds up very quickly. This is the second of the 2 whistles needed to reach World 8. Whenever Mario jumps with B-speed, the counter runs for a little over 4 seconds. If it reaches 0 before Mario lands and regains B-speed, the P-meter will reset, preventing Mario from flying any further. The counter always starts when Mario jumps, no matter his power up state, so this is why he can fly up even though he didn't have to leap at the moment he jumped. As long as this jump timer is active, Mario's speed is not taken into account, so Mario can turn around without
I
resetting
feel
the P-meter.
so good right
This
now.
also means that it's
I'd
possible
say
to reset
even
the
better
P-meter
than
by
when I
repeatedly
just took a
bouncing until
7-day
the timer
leave.
hits 0, even
Thank
without
you
the
for your
super.
help, Rover.
That part burns, yeah. That sucks.
Using a whistle will take you to the warp zone. Depending on which world it was used in, Mario will be placed in the next row, unless he was already in the state. But you can use the second whistle when already in the warp zone to go directly to the last world. This is the fastest way to reach the final world from the start of the game.
The Band-Aid. The Band-Aid strat.
This is the first of 4 auto-scrolling levels in World 8. Unfortunately, there's no way to speed up these levels significantly, so all Mitch has to do is to avoid time. The main thing to look out for in this level is lag, which can easily happen when too many enemies are on screen at once. So he tries to clear out enemies and prevent bombs from exploding.
And the stories were too embarrassing. Twitch chat was like, shut it down! Shut the FFP chat down! I'm guaranteed one of the answers. Like,
There is one way to reach the fight faster, that is by clicking inside of the block and letting the ball push Mario to the right and partly off screen, as you can see in this comparison with the tool-assisted speedrun. However, this is way too difficult to achieve, also high risk for a low part. If Mario gets pushed off screen, he will be crushed and die. He can only get pushed a maximum of 22 pixels forward. Given that auto-scrollers move by 1 pixel every 2 frames, this trick can only save a maximum of 44 frames if done perfectly, which is not even 3/4 of a second. This part is where reducing lag is the most important. Getting rid of these bombs is crucial to avoid a slowdown and time loss.
why are we doing pickup lines? I didn't know we were on the pickup lines. I'm not a pickup line person. I don't know if I've ever used a pickup line on someone before.
Really?
In this room, there are 2 key details to note. First, the chest only spawns when all enemies are dead, and projectiles are off screen. The boomerang rope can't move forwards or backwards. If it moves forwards, it will throw its boomerang from further left, so the boomerang will take an extra 22 frames to go off screen, playing the chest by the same amount. Fortunately, it went backwards in this run. However, the boomerang rope can also choose to delay its throw by 15 frames, which is what happened here. So, of the 4 different possibilities, Mitch got the second best outcome. Here's the second detail. When the chest spawns, it will be placed at one of these 2 points. It always appears at the furthest of the 2, so to reach the chest faster, Mitch made sure to keep Mario in the right half of the room while building up speed to the left, crossing the middle point right as the chest spawned.
I've never really done pickup lines before. I've always found them to be super, like, too much. Whether they work or not, that's not up to me to decide. I don't really care, or, like, that's nothing to do with me. I just always thought that me doing them was, like, I don't know, I'm just not a pickup line kind of person.
This fire flower is one of the toughest power-ups to grab and keep, even though Mitch makes it look easy. He needs to grab it for the upcoming battle against Moo Moo, because using fireballs is faster than stomping on it 3 times. In fact, Mitch needs to keep this fire flower through the entirety of the whole thing. The remaining auto-scrollers in the front have very little goal, so they're going to be fast-forwarding through. If you'd like to watch them in full, the unedited speedrun is in the video description. When coming out of the pipe, Mario can't move to the right until he touches the floor. Mitch uses this to his advantage by letting go of the D-pad with his left hand so he can mash the B button with both hands. This lets him throw 2 fireballs, the maximum that can be on screen at once, as quickly as possible. When fireballs hit a target, they go out in a puff of smoke. Only when that puff of smoke has completely disappeared, fireball being thrown. However, if you look closely, you can see that he actually
Let's take it slow.
11 frames after the first one fully disappeared. This is actually on purpose. Moo Moo can sometimes jump over fireballs,
How
causing them to
reliable.
miss. So Mitch intentionally uses his fireball button the second to ensure that never happens. After that, throws the final fireball a couple of frames after the disappears. The balance as the Moo Moo as visually, even where he is compared to the floor texture. An optimal fight ends with Moo Moo setting up this.
How
As you
reliable.
can see, Mitch barely lost time to win the fight.
Victory, guide
The
my
season
blade.
run can actually kill Moo Moo faster.
Administering
He
first
can't
aid.
attain that level
Embracing
of perfection.
change.
Swift and resolute. One with the sounds.
Yo, I did it without bumping. I finally did it. How do I press B so fast? I used both my thumbs.
How did Mario go over these squares without being grabbed once? Well, the short answer
Starting
is
from the
but.
shadows.
When
One
Mario
with the
goes
sound.
over each one of these 3 squares, he has a chance of being grabbed by a hand and forced into the stage. Each of them is a pretty large time loss, so to have a chance of
How
winning,
reliable.
Mitch needs to be lucky to avoid being grabbed all 3 times. This results in a 1 in 3 chance. This is by far the most important element of luck in the run. Other factors can cause small amounts of time here and there, but these hands cause 7 runs out of 8 to come to a dead end right there. This Moo Moo fight also went very well for Mitch. He executed this strategy pretty much perfectly.
Turn! I'm surprised I got no bump. Bumpless.
Here, Mitch intentionally slows down and waits before jumping to kill this piranha plant. This is because piranha plants take aim for a short time, then fire either up or down, depending on where Mario is relative to them. If Mitch had jumped earlier, the plant would have fired up and hit Mario. So he made sure to wait until the plant fired its fireball down before he jumped, and he kept his precious fire flower. There's a special property of the P-meter that I haven't explained yet, and it's especially relevant here. The P meter builds up only if Mario is running at full speed on the ground and he is held, but it doesn't check for these conditions at all times. It only checks once every 8 frames. Here, Mitch needs to throw a fireball to kill the Paratroopa, which means he needs to release B. If he's not holding B when the P meter checks for the conditions, or if he lets his speed drop, the P meter won't increment. Instead, it will decrement by 1 arrow and reset its timer to 24 frames, effectively delaying P-speed by 32 frames. There simply isn't enough room to get P-speed in that happens. So Mitch needs to release speed when the P-meter is not checking and depress it fast enough to not lose any speed. According to his input display, he released it for only 2 frames. Here, Mitch slowed down intentionally. Mario gets a card at the end of every numbered stage. The card always cycles mushroom, flower, and a star. Usually, running at P-speed and jumping into the card will give Mario a star. This is what happened in the first 2 levels. Matching 3 stars gives you 5 lives with this long fanfare, so he wants to avoid it and get the much shorter single one instead. So, he delays his jump just enough for the card to cycle back to the mushroom.
Mario has momentum in this game, so I can hold the D-pad, let go quick, shoot, go back to the D-pad. Not much of a difference being made.
I got your back.
God damn it, what a surprise. I can't believe I kept these.
Swift and resolute.
But both times,
Sense your weakness.
both no hands run after that RNG.
Here, you can see Mitch slowed down considerably and was visibly annoyed. What happened? He had to slow down because of the angry sun. Optimally, this section would look like this. However, the sun affects how you need to approach this part. The sun swoops down after spinning in a corner and random amount, 2 and 5 times. If it spins 3 times or more, there's enough time to bounce the section here seamlessly. If it spins only twice, there's no way to get past it without slowing down. It did spin twice here, so it would have hit Mario had he followed this route. This forced Mitch to slow down, unfortunately losing about half a second in the process. This is possibly the biggest time loss of the entire speedrun, which speaks volumes about the quality of the run itself. Again, considering the 1 in 8 chance that Mitch just overcame, this is not the end of the third.
This is the place. Those savants really love their puzzles. No wonder folks never managed to get inside.
That's because Alto set off the security alarm, and now...
I slide.
Anyway, we've got to figure out how to open it up again.
This room is very tricky to get through this quickly without getting hit, especially this jump to avoid the rotodisc, which has a 2-frame window. Mitch's capture card missed the frame where Mario was on the ground, but you can see that Mario is still in midair on this frame, and 2 frames later, he already jumped again. The layout of this room makes reaching P-speed extremely tricky. Mitch intentionally stays on this backwards conveyor belt to maximize the time spent running at full speed. The small
Top-notch
from the
defense.
backwards momentum of the conveyor is largely outweighed by the benefit of reaching P-speed before leaving this platform. Similarly, because he has to jump between these 2 platforms anyway, he stays on this forwards moving conveyor as little as possible. This 1-tile gap is crucial. If the P-meter happens to check for the 3 conditions while Mario is above the gap, Mario won't be on the ground, so the meter will not increment. So, the 3 or 4 frames where Mario is over the gap need to fall in between 2 of these checks. It's hard to tell precisely when the check is made because the P-meter doesn't always visually update at the same time, possibly incremented exactly on the frame where Mario landed on the ground. Here, Mario somehow kept P-speed before. How is that possible? Normally, because Mario is stationary coming out of the door, the P-meter is reset. However, by jumping shortly after exiting the door, Mario will jump before the P-meter resets. Because Mario is now in the air, the P-meter is relying on the jump timer instead of Mario's speed, so it doesn't reset. Once he lands, he does briefly lose P-speed, but since he's already going almost at full speed, it doesn't take long for him to get it right back. This door is only there while the P-switch is active. Thanks to P-speed conservation, Mitch is able to make it using the far P-switch. Otherwise, he would have had to hit this one instead. E-switch is also stopped conveyor belt, so if he had hit the switch, he would have had to wait out its timer before being carried under the spikes. In the final moments of the P-switch, because the conveyor is stopped anyway, it takes some time to build up momentum to slide as far as possible under the spikes. Jumping here lets Mario accelerate to a higher speed, which translates to an increased sliding distance and outweighs the benefits of the conveyor's momentum. Optimally, this would be the best strategy. However, this run would have been a few frames faster to simply go to the right. It all depends on exactly how long is left on the switch timer.
Check the security. Let's increase its rations. After all, it's our last. Now remember, the world record presses A on Bowser's Castle at 9:52. Remember, 9:52 on the A press of Bowser's Castle is the world record.
If you look closely, you can see that Boom Boom is a little off to the left, which means Mitch lost some time on this fight. His fireball timing was again top-notch, but he lost time here because when throwing the last fireball, Mario was standing a bit away from Boom, so the fireball traveled for longer before hitting him. This is a very minor time loss though. Overall, the Boom Boom fights in this run went very well.
Looks like I'm pretty far with it.
Okay, this part needs a deep dive. There are three major things happening here: wall jump, wall kill, and the wall clip. Let's start with the wall jump. When Mario hits the side of any block, he moves partly inside the block and gets pushed out on the next frame. So, after running into a wall, he can be found inside of the wall for a short time. Everything from ground to pipes to walls is broken up into individual blocks. This piece of the wall is in no way different to any ground block Mario can stand on. If on the first frame Mario is found inside of the wall, he's on top of a block that makes up that wall, he can stand on it for that one frame, so he can also jump from this position. Note that as opposed to Super Mario Bros., Mario doesn't need to be exactly on the top pixel of the block. Of the 16 pixels that make up each block, a wall jump is possible for 6 of them. But this is not as simple as a frame-perfect jump. To be able to stand on the block, Mario needs to be at least this far in, 3 pixels inside of the wall. Mario's position is calculated with more precision than the visual resolution of the screen. The smallest unit of distance the game commonly uses is 1/16th of a pixel, which is called a subpixel. Consequently, Mario's speed is calculated in subpixels per frame, so a speed of 16 is exactly 1 pixel per frame, and Mario's top speed without a full D meter is 40, 2.5 pixels per frame. At that speed, we will alternate between moving 2 pixels and 3 pixels on every frame. This means that assuming Mario is coming into the wall pixel perfectly at full speed, there's only a 50-50 chance that he will move 3 pixels into the wall. If his subpixel position is in the lower half, he will move by 2 pixels instead, which is not enough to stand inside of the wall. From any random starting position, only 8 out of 40 subpixels allow Mario to wall jump. So, by running at full speed into a wall and jumping at a random part of it, the chance of having the opportunity to perform a one-frame wall jump is only 7%. Here, Mitch was possibly not moving at full speed. We can't measure exactly how much he had, but it seems to be somewhere between 36 and 40. Every unit of speed below 40 makes the wall jump increasingly unlikely. The absolute minimum speed being 33, just 1 subpixel above 2 pixels per frame. Mario's subpixel position is entirely out of Mitch's control, as it's never set to a fixed value at any point other than the very start of the run. On top of that, Mitch needs to time his jump frame perfectly while Mario is stumbling in the air because of the starlight, making it very hard to see where he is exactly relative to the wall. All of this makes the wall jump the single hardest trick in this run by a long shot. It's particularly inconvenient that it's right at the very end of the run, after 4 auto-scrollers and a 1 in 8 chance. The next part is this wall kill. Mitch needs to keep his fire flower for the Bowser fight, so that's why he uses the star that he got in this level to get through the wall. The star expiring seems like a pretty close call, but just how close is it? Well, we can use Mario's flashing as a reference. It turns out that the last frame of invincibility is exactly 2 frames before Mario returns to his normal color, which happens to be this frame. That's right, this wall kill was frame perfect. 1 frame later, and the star would have had expired. The wall clip is a bit different. By duck jumping into this pixel and releasing down, Mario stands on the block and uncrouches. This puts his upper half fully inside of the ceiling. In this case, instead of ejecting Mario to the left, the game slowly pulls Mario to the right until he's out on the other side. The easiest and most famous way to do this is using this one-up block, as simply jumping onto the block and uncrouching will get Mario to the other side of the wall.
Oh, hey, it's her.
Mario is moving at the same speed, so the odds of Mario ending up 3 pixels inside the wall are again about 1 in 5. It would seem that the wall jump from just a few seconds earlier gives some insight on the subpixel value of Mario's position, but this value is so finicky that tiny factors such as the exact subpixel when hitting the wall jump, the slightly irregular acceleration mechanics, and having to duck before the jump are more than enough to throw any guess out of the window. As a result, the subpixel position is, again, effectively random. Bowser's Castle has a pretty complex layout. There are 2 different paths and 2 different arenas. This door leads to this section of the subworld and this arena, and that door leads to that section and the second arena. However, because there's only one subworld, these are all connected. By taking this door and going through the wall, Mario ends up where this door normally takes him. This cuts most of the level, but prevents Mario from going through this section with the speed. Overall, it saves about 5 seconds.
Wow! A big, clunky monster!
Damn! Those savants never run out of new surprises for us. The signal's coming
from going through this section with the speed.
Get it,
Overall, it saves about 5 seconds.
Looks like the pace is in motion. Guys, brace.
Alto, we doing it like we...
Of course.
Here, Mario does to fit under the ceiling without hitting it. However, if he was moving at full speed, he would have still hit it. So, Mitch intentionally presses down, throwing it and slides on his statue. While sliding, Mario gradually loses speed. This tiny slowdown is just enough to barely miss the corner. The usual way to defeat Bowser is to force him to destroy the floor until he flies down. Using fireballs is about 25 seconds faster. Bowser takes 35 fireballs to kill. Mitch positions himself perfectly so that Bowser can jump right next to him, allowing him to fire the last few fireballs.
What? I will protect.
What?
And just like that, Super Mario Bros. 3 was beaten in 10 minutes and 44 seconds. The timing ends on entering the door, specifically on this frame.
Here we go again.
Mitch stuffed his timer at 10:44:47, but upon retiming the run, it was found to be a 10:44.416.
Swift and resolute.
For this run, the previous world record set by Kirula in 2017 by just under 1 second.
Sorry about that, scream.
So, what else can be done to improve the record? Well, although Mitch got very fortunate batters, there's always room for faster hammer throws and a better sound pattern. Together, these could save a bit over a second. Also, although his map movement was astoundingly accurate, Mitch did slowly lose frames over the course of the run. Compared to frame-perfect gameplay, lost a total of 25 frames in the 38 overworld moves and 31 frames entering the 16 stages of the run. This sums up to 56 frames, not even a second of absolute perfection. Keep in mind that being early, even by a single frame, is a large time loss, yet Mitch somehow did most of the actions on the map within 1 frame of perfect. Other than that, there are a few little things here and there that add up, like the Boom Boom fights, the World 1 levels, and 8-1 for instance. There's almost always frames to squeeze out of these sections, but it's hard to estimate exactly how many. There is some time left to save by adding more tricks to the run. The 1-2 sliding strategy is too precise to pull off in real-time runs. The issue with it is twofold. First, actually reaching the maximum sliding speed is nearly impossible without either getting hit by the Goomba or hitting this wall. Second, Mario slows down when he touches the ground, requiring frame-perfect jumps to preserve his speed.
I'm getting
A
sleepy.
suboptimal speed carries through